Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Game Pass. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to take this Game Pass games with your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Tunic. Link's Awakening finally made it to the Xbox with, wait, that's not Link, that's a fox. And all the text boxes are in Klingon, and it's isometric? What does all this have to do with a Tunic? Tunic is an Xbox and PC cross-release that features both cross-save and cross-achievements. That's pretty great. It is Series S and X enhanced. Best of my knowledge, it's for 60 FPS, and the game will take you about 10 to 15 hours to complete. So what exactly is Tunic? Well, it's an exploration-based adventure game with a good bit of puzzle elements and lots of throwbacks to both Zelda, Dark Souls, and users manuals. Yes, really. You play as a fox who washed ashore on a new land to do, well, you don't really know exactly. And that's actually a core gameplay component. Most of the game is in some kind of runic language, including 90% of the text boxes, so the big main puzzle of the game is using context clues to figure out what items do, what objectives are, and where to explore. Luckily, the game has a pretty cute way to help guide you, the game quote-unquote manual. As you explore, you'll pick up individual pieces from what is essentially the game's strategy guide circa 1987, complete with notes in the margins from the guide's previous owner. However, as most of the guide is also in Moon language, and you don't get those pages in order, you'll have to use a lot of logic to figure out exactly what it's trying to say, where to go next, and what items do. Aside from that, Tunic is a fairly linear isometric action game, very akin to Zelda, but with some Souls influences. You'll be doing exploration, some basic combat, and finding items that are used for mostly combat and sometimes puzzles. You have a stamina bar that's used for both rolls and blocks, with the penalty that when it runs out, you'll take temporary bonus damage. The game's Souls influence comes from its bonfire-esque checkpoints, which includes the usual, if you die, you need to go recover your body to get some currency back. But its other core influence is its dungeon layouts, which are focused more on unlocking shortcuts back to the quote bonfire, rather than having any super complex puzzle elements akin to The Legend of Zelda. Lastly, there's an upgrade system based around fighting certain key items and using them and money to upgrade stats, as well as shops to buy consumables and such. I won't go into too much detail because deciphering it is a crucial part of what makes the game fun, but let's just say it's fully fleshed out and draws heavy inspiration from early Zelda games. So what do I like about Tunic? Well, the exploration and cryptic nature of the world was a nostalgia overload for me. It flashed me back to when I was 8 and played Zelda 2 at my friend's house. We had that Nintendo Power Guide open, we were writing stuff in the margins, we were learning stuff. It was really cool, really exciting. This just encapsulates that feeling of discovery and exploration that I honestly haven't felt since, well, Dark Souls 1, if I'm being completely honest, and I love that. The game's pace is also really fantastic, with it being fairly linear but using excellent signposting through gameplay to guide the player to where they go next. This helps it be a lot less frustrating. And lastly, the game looks really cute, but the standout is definitely the fake manual, which is done up in the style of those 80s Nintendo Power Guides and is a puzzle in and of itself, which I really loved. When it comes to the bad, if you don't like obtuse games, you'll find yourself banging your head against the wall for definitely the beginning portion of this game. Thankfully, it doesn't take too long to click, but you have to like experimentation and not always knowing what's going on in order to enjoy this kind of game. Secondly, the isometric viewpoint led to some tricky positioning and puzzles. It wasn't as bad as Death's Door, which I had a lot of problems with its combat because of that, but it still does lead to some tricky depth perception in certain areas. And lastly, the combat is fairly rudimentary and has a fairly massive difficulty spike once you hit the first real boss. I think it's because it's so clunky, you don't really have a way to break attack chains, be it dodging or blocking, so you end up being very reactive in your combat. As you know, rate games here on a 3-point scale: must play, maybe consider, don't bother. Tunic is definitely a must play. Despite its handful of flaws, I absolutely adored it. I knew nothing about this game until I saw it on Game Pass, but the feelings it evoked reminded me how much I just love old games that don't tell you anything really, and it all pieced together just wonderfully. If you're a fan of Zelda 1 or more recently Dark Souls, which I feel is a spiritual successor to that era of games, you should absolutely check out Tunic as soon as you can. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and go out there and enjoy the hell out of Tunic.